Welcome to Dare Yourself. I am Nataly Kogan. I'm coming to you from my art studio, which is a place of messy, imperfect action. And we are here to talk about reinvention, courage, and why action always beats perfection. My guest today is Liisa. When I first met Liisa a few months ago, she was at a breaking point. She was stuck in a really difficult work environment. She was recently an empty nester. And as she said to me, she was feeling undervalued, depleted, and in her own words, useless. But she made a dare to herself and she followed through. She joined my reinventability lab, which we call the accelerator. And Liisa did the hard, messy work of finding her worth. And today she isn't just working, she is thriving and doing her own workshops and charging what she's worth and impacting people's lives through her own work. So Liisa, welcome to Dare Yourself.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. Okay, let's go all the way back. So I want you to take us back to the time you and I talked. It was a few months ago before you joined the lab and we were working together. And when we first talked, you told me that you were in a really difficult place. You were feeling really down and undervalued. I'd love for you to share, what was the moment when you realized that staying there was costing you more than moving forward?
Yeah, those are big moments. It was a really rough time for me, and I definitely stayed in a stuck place, sort of on the hamster wheel of, if I just hang in here, things will get a little better and things will open up. And I stayed in that place for more than a year. And it certainly didn't make me feel better. It made me feel worse as time went on. And it was just sort of coincidental that I happened to have looking through email, and you had sent an email out on that particular day about signing up for a 2-hour live stream, and it was from stuck to sparked. And I didn't even think that sparked could be something I could feel again. Stuck, I definitely was. But I just said, okay, I can do this tiny little thing. Let's see what happens. And I signed up.
I love that so much, Liisa, because, I work with a lot of great people like you, right, to help them reinvent. And often when we think of our next chapter or next step or changing something, we think it has to be some giant leap. I have to, blow things up and make dramatic changes. And we don't do them because that's very scary for the brain to think about, oh, I got to make huge changes. That feels very unsafe. Our brain really loves the familiar. So I love that, you took a really tiny step. You just were like, I can't even imagine feeling sparked, but I'm just gonna sign up and show up and listen. And there's such wisdom in that, Liisa, just tiny step after tiny step. And that's how the big shifts happen. I mean, that's what you've done. Before we talk about what you've done, which has been incredible, you use this word, and I talk to a lot of people, but it really stayed with me. The first time we talked, you said, I am feeling useless. And that is such a heavy word. So it must have felt so heavy, so difficult. And share a little bit about how that internal feeling and that story actually prevented you from seeing the gifts that you do have to offer.
Yeah. So I even thinking about, and I remember saying it because it was exactly where I was at. And I really didn't feel in that moment that I had things to offer, that I had a role, that I had a purpose. I just didn't have any of that. And I was questioning. I knew I needed to do something, but I didn't know what. And I was questioning really how much everything I had done in the past mattered. Like, how could I be here if I did all of these things before? How could I be feeling like this right now? And I think it was a lot of the internal work and starting to look at that a little bit deeper that started to begin to break things up a little bit and make room for something else to begin to lift up.
It's a beautiful, and if you're not watching us on YouTube, which we have a link in the show notes to watch this, but if you're not watching, if you're listening, Liisa actually like lifted up as she said that, because that's the feeling, right, of what happens when we can have the courage to look at some of the inner old stories that are weighing us down, like we have space from them. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of these things that you did. You know, in the Reinventability Lab, we focus on the skill of reinventing, on creating what's next, right? On working through these inner doubts and inner ceilings. What were some of like your first micro dares or micro mindset shifts that started to crack like that inner self-doubt?
They were definitely micro at first. I think we spent some time looking at those little barriers that get in our way, those stories that we tell ourselves. You know, a simple one was just like, I'm not technology savvy, right? So therefore, I can't move forward with any of these X, Y, and Z things because they're tech related and I'm not good at that. And so even on the tiniest level, looking at the language that I was saying to myself, I'm not good at that. Wait, whoa, hold on. Starting in the tiny little pieces of that inner dialogue and then sort of spending the time. Is that really true? Where did that come from? How did I let that be reinforced because I was scared about doing something, or maybe I was embarrassed? And from that, just taking those tiny little steps and beginning to check in with, do we have any evidence that of the contrary? And that's a wonderful thing you helped with. And we're like, oh well, gosh, there is evidence of things that I've done really, really well. And I had really lost so much in the time spent kind of in the feeling of uselessness, lost so much confidence in what I could bring and do and offer. And so beginning to very piece by piece, looking at these things and doing it in a very constructive way, spending the time looking at it, challenging it, and then going, well, you know what? That's actually not actually true. And then doing a little something to gain momentum to actually reinforce that, okay, look, I just did that and the sky didn't fall. It actually felt pretty good.
And so I love that, Liisa. And I want to talk about all the things you did, because you've had so many firsts and so much momentum that you built. But before we go there, I actually remember a conversation, because you did the lab and we also were working one-on-one, right, as we are. And in one of our one-on-one conversations, I remember we were working around this like, well, I'm not good in talking about myself or my work. And that was like the thing, right? Because you wanted to create your own workshop, mindfulness and yoga workshop, but you were like, I'm not good at that stuff. And I remember I asked you, I said, were there times in your life, in your career, where you had to get up in front of people and talk about things, right? Do you remember what you said? Because it's one of my favorite moments. Because do you remember what you said?
Yes, I think it was about speaking at a conference in Atlanta.
Yes.
In front of hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I did it and it went great.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I had forgotten, right? Those things were
Yes.
so buried. I had forgotten that
Yes.
some of those great wins, and they're still here. They're still here. They're still within me. And to go back and connect with those was very exciting and empowering. And it really reinforced that, okay, yeah, I did do that. And it
And
turned out
that's one
great.
of the, and it turned out great. And it
Yeah.
turned out great. And I remember that so well, and that's a big piece of the work that we do in the lab is the internal stuff, which some people are surprised about. But the reason that we get stuck is not lack of ability or talent or ideas or desire. It's none of that. It's we forget our own greatness. We forget our own abilities. The brain loves to focus on the negative stuff. It loves to focus on what we're not good enough at. And so we forget. And so we have to, you heard me say this in the lab all the time, we have to peel away all those false narratives to get to to me, it's kind of like, I don't know, like the diamond in the rough to get to our, hey, it's here. Like what you just said, I've done these hard things before and it was great. So I spoke to hundreds of people. I can reach out to a bunch of people, talk to them about my new workshop. It's this, I have the capability. So much of, the work that you've done and that we do in the lab is about reconnecting and remembering who we really are. And that takes peeling away some of these stories. I want to just ask you one more question because it sounds so beautiful when you talk about it, but it also wasn't easy. I have worked with you, so I know it wasn't easy. It takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of courage to say, hey, this story is coming from this deep place. I'm going to look at it. What helped you do that? Because you did it with such commitment and courage. What helped you do it?
That's a really good question. I think I was so ready to be done with where I was. So there was certainly that was motivating. And I know that we did you would offer us a lot of ways to reframe and understand maybe why fear was coming up or why that might be happening. And for me, that was very helpful in going, well, of course that makes sense now. And I think a lot of it is that I'm trying to articulate this in a helpful way. When we get stuck, we just keep doing the same things and thinking at it from the same lens. And so being able to reframe and having this sense of, as I started to get a little bit of momentum and a little bit of understanding of, oh, okay, that makes more sense. Having a reminder to be kinder to myself and gentler, and a sense of compassion for all that I came through allowed me to keep sort of sharing and looking at it. And I certainly think, obviously your help was tremendous with that. It's tremendous in a group setting as well, because even if it might not be something that you're thinking about on a day, someone else shares something and you can so identify with exactly where they're at, what they're feeling. You're like, yeah, me too. And from a good way that I can identify that with that. And we're all in this together. And and seeing people also, other people that you're with start to take those little steps is very exciting too, because you're excited for them. And then if they can do it, you can do it. And it's just this wonderful combination.
Yeah, it's really powerful. It's one of the reasons I started to do these labs, these small groups, because of everything you just said, right? I have a lot to offer in the frameworks and the encouragement and all the things you said, but it's really magical to know we're not alone, and often we can learn from others in a way that we can't get there ourselves because our ego and the fear is so loud. But when we hear them workshop it with themselves, we're like, oh yeah, that gives me a door to walk through. So Liisa, I say this to you every time we meet. I think I am so proud of you. You had so many firsts during the lab and since, right? You, first of all, envision doing something on your own. You left the difficult work environment. You envision your own workshop. You created your first ever masterclass after we worked through how to do that. You reached out to people to invite them to attend. You created a flyer in Canva using tech and sent it to people. You charged more than you ever have in your life, what it was really worth to you, and people signed up. Like, you had so many firsts. I'd love if you could talk about, like, if you can pick a few that maybe terrified you the most, and how did you get yourself to like hit send or go live in that masterclass anyway?
Yes. Well, one that immediately comes to mind and is really, even for example, for like the masterclass, knowing December is a very busy time of year for people and feeling that push to, I need to share information and I should share it in this certain way, but I don't have a full email list created and I don't have all the things. And taking that moment, and obviously some of the stuff that we've all worked on, you know, one-on-one and together, that how can I make this simpler? How can I make this a tiny step? Because I have now a couple months behind me of tiny steps actually lead to something. And it was very simple. I'm like, I could just create a little save the date in text. So easy, so simple. I have actually my core group on my phone, which is way easier than getting all the current email addresses. And I did it. And what would have previously derailed me, that would have been probably the end of things. Or I would have waited so long that it would have been the day before and, oh, gee, nobody's coming. See, it just worked out that way. That would have been the old behaviors and self-talk, etc. But every time simplifying and figuring it out, don't have the web page yet, don't have the website yet, didn't matter, right? Just keep stepping forward.
And I love that so much. I remember there was a moment you were making a flyer in Canva, which interestingly is a technology platform, and you did a great job. So I think we're done with that story that you're not good in tech. But you were working on a flyer and you sent me a couple versions. And I loved watching you do this work that we did together on your own. Because at some point I was like, I think they're all great. And you were like, yeah, I'm just going to pick one. And I was like, yes, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just pick one. It's great. And you were like, I'm just going to pick this one. I'm going with it. And you couldn't see me, obviously, because it was on text. But I was going like, great. Because it is, as you're saying, it's not acting to create something perfect. It's just tiny little steps to create momentum and realizing there is no perfect. And like, that's how you did it. And so I want you to tell us about the offer that you created, the workshop. I want you to tell everyone. And I just want to, like, as you do it, just like to bring it full circle. Like, you went from feeling undervalued and useless just like a few months ago to having a group of people pay you more than you've ever charged for your work, doing something that you are so excited about. Like, tell us about your offer and just tell us how does it feel to be doing that?
Well, it feels amazing. And I think that I after the very first class that I taught with this new group, I said, this is like heaven. This is heaven. I'm not sure there is anything better than this, aligned in what I want to do, what excites me, totally for myself. And it went from thinking about when we were early in the accelerator, oh, maybe I could do a little 2-hour thing, and being challenged with, is that a stretch? It was like, no. And it became a 6-week Beat the Winter Blues workshop. found a place to have it, created the flyers, reached out to people, found a way to receive funds online and did all the things. And we're right in the middle of that. We're like in week 3, and it has just been, I mean, I'm excited every day that I'm like, ooh, it's tomorrow. We get to be together tomorrow, right? Because it's a great group. I can share things in a way that I think is very meaningful. I feel like I'm doing something that I was meant to do and delivering it in the way that I was meant to deliver it, instead of, trying to fit into other boxes to do it. So it's incredibly freeing. It's incredibly energizing. I love it.
And I've said this to you, and I'll say this now. Your energy is completely different. You look different. You're the same person. I mean, we're talking about a few months, but when we, because we meet every week, and you look different. You're alive. You're vibrant. We talk about ideas. And now, by the way, just so everybody knows, so first it was like this 2-hour thing because you didn't want to take up space. And then it's a 6-week. And now you're actually creating a year-long experience, right? To take people through the seasons, right?
Yeah.
Which is so beautiful and so in service and so aligned with what you love to do. Like, that's a testament to the work you've done to like peel away all that stuff. You're just like flourishing flower, right? Like, and you keep unfolding. There's more to go. You mentioned, I would always ask you and everyone in the lab, I say, when we do our action sprints, right? The first week, you take an action every day, mini action. And then the second week, you all don't know this the first time around, I say, okay, now take a 10x action, 10x courage. So what action would you take if you had 10x the courage? And I remember, Liisa, one of the times where that was the prompt, you were like, oh, I don't think I would have done that if I didn't ask myself, what is the 10x courage?
Yeah, 100%. I remember like when you first challenged us in that way, that it was like, whoa, like, and then, okay, what would that look like? And all those things brought up a lot of discomfort and resistance. And went ahead, okay, I'm doing it today, doing it, sharing that I did it. And again, in resistance, and typically the thought of it is worse than the actual doing of it, right? And coming back to that place of, this is something that I really love to share. It made a huge difference in my life. If it makes a difference in someone else's life, what a win. And again, having the reminder that you provide so frequently, being in service is a gift. And that feels, again, totally aligned and totally authentic from where I'm at right now. And I want to share that.
I love that so much. And it's a big theme we work on in the lab, which is doing things that feel good, which to most, highly capable women like you that I work with, that question, what feels good, is like not a question we've ever asked ourselves, because we're really good at doing things we should do, doing things that someone else needs us to do, doing things that are quote unquote appropriate, not things that feel good. And that's one of the huge kind of gems that we uncover, is when we do things that feel good, that feel aligned, whatever word you want to use, that's actually when we have the best impact, right? Like this group that's going through this with you, they're getting such a gift because you're just doing things that feel good to you. We were talking, I said, what do you have planned for next session? And you said, well, I have these 2 directions I could go, but I'm going to decide based on just what I feel from the group. I'm going to do what feels good. And so it's so beautiful. And I want to ask you a question about that. Like, you have made such a shift from seeking external validation to building this internal self-trust. And how does that shift change like the way you think about your next move and the next thing you want to create, the next workshop, idea, whatever it is? How does that change internally?
Well, having that sense of trust, I feel just very grounded and so certain. Like, yes, I have all of this. I have all of so much, so much teaching, so much background, so much, all these things to share. But like you just said, the piece that wasn't there, the piece that was still, is getting the validation from external, all the external sources. So if I offer something and I don't, and nobody comes, then then the what I learn is I'm not any good. That was the previous place that I was living in. And to have that sense of trust in myself, there's just an ease. I don't have that niggling sense of worry that I won't have something to share. I definitely will. So that is hugely different. Having that sense of, I know it, and I don't have to have anyone else tell me or give me the thumbs up, go ahead and proceed. It's just right here. And it's been so really freeing to trust in that I can do this.
I'm getting a little teary, I have to tell you, listening to you. I am. And if you're on YouTube, you can't see it. I have good lighting, everybody. I do this for a living. Because it's so powerful, Liisa, and to have watched you do this work and like literally to emerge as this like seed and this flower that's like breaking through. It's really incredible. And you are such a perfect example of what happens when we have the courage to look at those old stories and the old beliefs that feel like they're part of our identity.
Yes.
And to question them, to not accept them, to question them. And then through the little openings that creates, to start taking those little steps. I mean, this is like literally why I created the Reinventability Lab, to like, and you said it helps when it's structured, to give people like the framework and the structure and the courage to do exactly what you did. So I just want to say, for all of you listening, if Liisa's before feels like you are now, if you're feeling undervalued and stuck and like you're not sure how to get out of it, I want to invite you to apply for the next cohort of the lab. We have opened the doors. We'll put a link in the show notes and you can learn more about it and read Liisa's testimonial and schedule a call with me to connect to see if it's the right fit. And one of the ways that I've started to talk about it is it's a place where we turn that stuckness feeling. For me, it feels like internal molasses when I've been there. Like I can't get out of it. We turn that feeling into momentum and flourishing. And Liisa, I am so grateful for you doing this work, for being able to guide you in this work, for you being here and for you being so honest. Because one of the most beautiful reflections talking to you is you didn't just change your job, you changed your relationship with yourself. And you're like such a proof point that our gifts don't go away if we're stuck or we're in a difficult place. They're just like waiting for us to reclaim them.
Yes, and this whole experience has been amazing. And I'm just so excited that I clicked on that email because wow, like it is wow. I probably don't see it as much as you do because you have the before. I feel it differently, but I don't have the external view. I know it feels incredibly, incredibly different. And it's a joy. It's just like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm here to do. So if anybody is pondering that if I can do this, anybody can. Yeah.
Oh, beautifully said. And, to everyone listening, as you've listened to Liisa's story, I think one of the biggest reminders there is you just said it, Liisa, like your current situation does not have to be like your final destination. But it's not going to happen with magic. You have to dare yourself to take that little step forward, to sign up for that thing or to talk to that person or to reach out. Like you have to dare yourself to take that little step forward. So in our tradition for every episode, here's your weekly dare. This week, I want you to identify one place in your life or your work where you are playing small because you're afraid that you're not ready, you're not good enough, you don't have what it takes. And I want you to make one bold ask or send one outreach email, just like Liisa did. Don't worry about the result. Just dare to do it. Just dare to be seen. And that's how you begin to create momentum. And if you have found value in Liisa's journey in this conversation, please share this episode with someone who you think could benefit from it. I'm Nataly Kogan. I'll be back with another episode of Dare Yourself. And until then, what are you waiting for? Go dare yourself and create the life like Liisa did that fills you with that feeling of joy and excitement every day. Liisa, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you.